I'm just wondering, at what point do we get to a true constitutional crisis? And I know we keep talking about that, but I'm sitting here, the Supreme Court said facilitate the return of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, and yet he's still not back.
That's right. So, you know, this is the question so many of us are debating. And I will say that a month ago, my view was we weren't at a true crisis until you had outright defiance of a clear judicial ruling. The problem is what the Trump administration is doing is everything's a little squishy, right? They're trying to introduce ambiguity into terms like facilitate. They're trying to introduce ambiguity into Judge Boasberg's order, turn the planes around, right? And say, well, we were over international airspace by that point in time. And so they're not going into the judges and saying, we think your order is unlawful and we're not going to comply. Then, you know, we'd be at that complete loggerheads. And I think the courts, at least the Supreme Court, not so much the lower courts. The lower courts have clearly had it. They're being very clear. They feel like they're being lied to, and I think sometimes they are, not necessarily intentionally by the attorneys in front of them, but because the attorneys in front of them don't have the information they need to answer the judge's questions. But I think the Supreme Court has kind of allowed some of that squishiness by being less than crystal clear in its orders, and it's time for it. And I think partly that was intentional so that they could leave some time for the push-pull and hope that the administration would sort of do the right thing. But it's hard not to say we're not already in crisis point when I'm talking about it for, you know, several minutes to try to explain the answer to that question.